everyone. My name is Mariel Bello, and I'm really excited to be joining you all today from the not so sunny side of Rhode Island during East Coast time, but I can see right now it's pretty sunny here, so it reminds me of home. So, my name is Mariel Bello. I'm currently a clinical psychology resident at the Alpert Medical School of Brown University, and I'm currently working with Dr. Kirsten Langdon. And I'm also a doctoral candidate in the clinical science program at USC, working with Dr. Adam Leventhal. So I'm excited to really share our current work, which focuses on understanding the interactive effects of financial strain and distress tolerance on pre-quit tobacco withdrawal symptoms in smokers who are preparing to engage in a quit attempt. So before we begin, I just wanted to note that none of our authors reported a conflict of interest, and these are our funding agencies. So socioeconomic disparities in tobacco addiction are well documented in the literature. As you can see here from these 2016 estimates of current cigarette smoking rates in the US by poverty status and educational levels, the prevalence rate of current cigarette smoking remains substantially higher among those who are below the poverty level, and also those with lower educational levels as well, relative to those above the poverty status and those with higher education. And then there's also prior evidence suggesting that smokers who experience greater financial strain, which you can define as one's perceived inability to meet their financial needs and obligations, are less likely to quit smoking and also appear to be at greater risk of relapse following a cessation attempt. So some studies suggest that a potential reason for why these socioeconomic disparities in tobacco addiction may exist is that these smokers who report high financial strain may experience greater severity of tobacco withdrawal symptoms during a cessation attempt. However, there's no studies to date that have explored whether greater financial strain may impact tobacco withdrawal prior to quitting, given that some smokers may experience withdrawal while preparing to quit via changing their smoking behavior, or they may have elevated negative mood or some anticipatory concerns about their upcoming quit date. Also, there's some limited work that has explored whether distress tolerance may buffer the aversive effects of financial strain on tobacco withdrawal, especially among smokers who are experiencing cumulative distress from both internal aversive states and also socioeconomic disadvantage. So that's what our study aimed to do. So in this study, we investigated the individual and interactive effects of financial strain and distress tolerance on tobacco withdrawal symptoms experienced prior to quitting among daily cigarette smokers who were preparing to initiate a self-guided quit attempt. And so our sample was 116 treatment-seeking smokers recruited from two sites, Burlington, Vermont, and Houston, Texas. And overall, on average, our participants were 33 years of age. Majority of our sample was white and male, and also moderate to heavy smokers with medium levels of nicotine dependence. So participants first completed a baseline session, which informed consent, carbon monoxide level analysis, followed by the completion of demographic and smoking history questionnaires and other self-report measures shown here. So to assess self-reported financial strain and distress tolerance, we use the financial strain questionnaire, which is a 7-item measure that assessed the degree to which it was financially difficult for our participants to afford basic necessities, such as food, clothing, housing, leisure activities, and bills. And so our total score was computed based on the sum ratings across 7 items, with higher scores reflecting greater financial strain. And then we also used the distress tolerance scale to measure self-reported distress tolerance, which evaluated an individual's ability to withstand negative emotional states when feeling distressed or upset. So we computed a mean score of items with higher scores reflecting greater distress tolerance. So then following that baseline session, participants were instructed to initiate an unaided quit attempt, where they were informed to quit smoking on their own without any assistance 14 days following the baseline session. So then pre-quit tobacco withdrawal symptoms that were experienced 3 days prior to the quit date were assessed each day away from the laboratory using a Qualtrics survey that was sent once per day in the evening before bedtime. And so to assess changes in pre-quit tobacco withdrawal, we use the following measures: the positive and negative affect schedule to assess changes in positive and negative mood states, the Minnesota nicotine withdrawal scale to assess severity of tobacco withdrawal symptoms as shown here. And then we use 6 novel author-constructed single items shown here to assess the extent to which participants experience tobacco withdrawal symptoms and negative mood-related states as bothersome, interfering, and intolerable prior to quit date. So we conducted linear regression models to test main effects and interactive effects between distress tolerance and financial strain on pre-quit tobacco withdrawal outcomes, and then this is what we found. So our findings demonstrated that financial strain significantly moderated the effect of distress tolerance on perceptions of pre-quit tobacco withdrawal and negative mood related states, such that, as you can see here, among smokers who reported high financial strain, those with lower levels of distress tolerance versus higher levels of distress tolerance reported greater perceptions of tobacco withdrawal and negative mood related states as being more difficult to tolerate prior to initiating a quit attempt. So in summary, what we found is that some preliminary evidence to suggest that financial strain may negatively impact one's perceived ability to tolerate mood and tobacco withdrawal states prior to a quit attempt, but higher distress tolerance may potentially serve as a protective factor and buffer the effects of financial strain on smoking cessation processes. That some implications for our work is that maybe potentially psychosocial interventions designed to promote tolerance of distress that originates from not only internal sources like internal aversive emotional states, but also external sources like financial strain and socioeconomic disadvantage may benefit smoking cessation efforts among socioeconomically disadvantaged smokers. So just wanted to thank my research mentor and my collaborators, many of them who I know and who are in this audience. Thank you so much. Any questions? I'm unable to see if anyone's asking questions, so apologies.
We got you, Mariel. Anybody? Really nice presentation. Thank you so much. Some of the underlying biological or
I'm so sorry. And unfortunately, I can't hear you. The volume isn't very clear at all. I only heard like underlying biological states, but
Mariel, can you hear this?
yes, now. Perfect. Perfect.
Hi, thank you so much for, sorry? Oh, hi, Alyssa Harlow. I'm a postdoctoral scholar here in the Department of Population and Public Health Sciences. I was just wondering if you could speak about what you think some of the underlying biological mechanisms might be that could potentially explain your findings.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so. A lot of my work looks at the intersection between psychobiological mechanisms and sociocultural mechanisms. And I think one thing that a lot of my work has explored is that when an individual is trying to undergo a quit attempt, the not only are the processes that are involved in tolerating distress, psychological distress particularly, but also how the processes about tolerating external sources or distress from other sources can come into play. And so I think I don't know exactly the neurobiological mechanisms at play, but one thing that comes to mind is just emotion regulation processes and one's ability to regulate distress in the moments of heightened distress could be something that could be one of the things at play here. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mariel.
Thank you.